The restaurant was the kind of place people posted on social media just to prove they'd been there. Sleek marble floors, polished silver cutlery, chandeliers that bathed every table in golden light. On the outside, Maison d'Amour looked like a place that belonged in Beverly Hills, but it sat right in the heart of Atlanta, and people drove hours just to dine there. On a warm Friday evening, the dinner rush had already begun. Waiters in crisp white shirts and black aprons hurried between tables carrying trays stacked with wine glasses while the faint sound of a jazz band played near the bar. Among the waitstaff was Ethan, a tall, handsome waiter with slicked-back blonde hair and a confident smile that bordered on arrogance. To most guests, he was charming, efficient, and polite, but when it came to certain customers, Ethan's mask slipped. He had a way of deciding who belonged in a fine dining restaurant and who didn't, and tonight he was about to learn a lesson that would change his life forever. The door chimed softly as a woman stepped in. A black woman, elegant and poised, wearing a long cream-colored coat over a navy blue dress. Her hair was styled in soft curls, her makeup was subtle but perfect, and her posture carried quiet confidence. Her name was Camille. She looked around with a polite smile, scanning the busy room. To anyone observing closely, she seemed perfectly comfortable, like she had every right to be there. But to Ethan, standing near the podium, she didn't outfit the picture he deconstructed in his head of Maison d'Amour clientele. He gave her a quick once-over and immediately decided she must have walked into the wrong place. He didn't recognize her, of course. He didn't know that she was married to David Lawson, the man who owned the restaurant. David preferred to keep their marriage private. Camille wasn't one to flaunt wealth or position. She preferred normalcy, to be seen as herself, not as the owner's wife. Camille smiled as she approached the podium. "Good evening. Table for one, please." Her voice was calm, warm, polite. Ethan forced a smile, the kind that didn't reach his eyes. I'm sorry, ma'am, but we're fully booked tonight. Reservations only." Camille glanced at the half-empty dining room. "Oh, I see several open tables?" Ethan's jaw tightened slightly. "Yes, well, those are reserved for premium guests. We can't just seat walk-ins." His tone carried a faint condescension. Camille tilted her head, studying him. "I see. Is it possible to wait for an opening?" she asked. "Ma'am," he said, lowering his voice, "I just don't think this is the right kind of restaurant for everyone. Maybe you'd be more comfortable down the street. There is a nice diner that—" Camille's eyebrows rose slightly, her smile unwavering. "A diner? And what kind of people usually come here, if you don't mind me asking?" Ethan hesitated, realizing he'd said too much, but his pride kept him from backing down. "Our guests tend to appreciate fine dining and understand the etiquette that comes with it." Camille's eyes softened. She could feel the sting of his words, but instead of reacting, she simply said, "Well, I think I can manage fine dining etiquette just fine." She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Before she could say more, another waiter, a young Latina named Maria, hurried over. "Good evening. Oh, Camille, you're here early." Ethan turned sharply. "You know her?" he asked. Maria nodded quickly. "Yes, Mr. Lawson mentioned she might stop by tonight." Ethan blinked, confused. "Mr. Lawson?" But before Maria could answer, Camille placed a gentle hand on her arm. "It's all right, Maria," she said quietly. "I don't want to cause a scene. I'll just take a seat if one's available." Maria nodded and guided her toward a table by the window, while Ethan stood frozen, his cheeks burning with confusion and annoyance. As Camille sat, she could feel Ethan's eyes on her from across the room. He muttered something under his breath to another waiter, who snickered. "Probably someone Mr. Lawson is helping out," Ethan whispered. "He's got a big heart. Must be charity." Camille didn't have to hear it to know what he was thinking. She'd seen that expression before. The judgment, the quiet disbelief that someone who looked like her could belong in a place like this. Maria brought over a menu. "Can I get you a drink, Camille?" Camille smiled. "Just water for now, thank you." As Maria walked off, Ethan sauntered over with a tray of appetizers for another table, but paused near hers. "You sure you don't want to look at our lunch menu instead?" he asked casually. "It might be more affordable." Camille looked up, meeting his gaze directly for the first time. "No," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Dinner is fine." The air between them grew heavy for a moment before he turned away, smirking. While Camille browsed the menu, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her husband, David. "Sorry I'm running late, sweetheart. Traffic on Peachtree is insane. Order whatever you want. I'll join soon." Camille smiled faintly. She wasn't angry. David was always late. It was one of his flaws, but she loved him for his kindness and humility. He'd built Maison d'Amour from scratch, hiring people from all backgrounds, emphasizing fairness and respect. If only he knew one of his waiters didn't share those values. 10 minutes later, Ethan returned to take her order. "Have you decided, ma'am?" he asked, pen poised. "Yes," Camille said. "I'll have the filet mignon with roasted vegetables, please." Ethan wrote it down with a forced grin. "That's one of our most expensive dishes," he remarked pointedly. "Just making sure." "I'm aware," Camille replied smoothly. "And I'll take the house red as well." "Very well," he said, his tone dripping with mock politeness. As he walked away, Camille overheard him muttering to a coworker, "Let's see if her card even goes through." The meal arrived beautifully plated. Camille thanked Maria, who handled her table while Ethan hovered nearby, still curious and judgmental. When she finally took her first bite, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was David. "Almost there. Don't let Ethan or the staff treat you any differently, okay? I told them you'd be coming as a regular guest." Camille smiled knowingly. Of course, this had been his test. He often did this, sent friends or family in undercover to see how the staff treated people. But tonight, fate had turned the test personal. 15 minutes later, David walked in, tall, confident, wearing a tailored navy suit. The moment he entered, the staff straightened. Ethan noticed him and quickly rushed over. "Good evening, Mr. Lawson. Table for you, sir?" David smiled. "No need, Ethan. I'm joining my wife." Ethan froze mid-step, the color draining from his face. "Your wife?" David gestured toward Camille's table, where she was sipping her wine. "Yes, Camille Lawson." Ethan's throat tightened as he turned slowly, staring at her. She met his gaze with quiet calm, no anger, just measured grace. David walked over and kissed her cheek before sitting. "Sorry I'm late, love." The entire restaurant seemed to go silent. Maria hid a smile behind her hand, watching Ethan's expression collapse into horror. Camille leaned slightly toward her husband and whispered, "He told me I might be more comfortable at a diner." David's smile faded. He turned to Ethan, who stood frozen like a statue. "Is that true?" he asked quietly. Ethan stammered, "Sir, I didn't realize—" "Didn't realize what?" David's tone was sharp but controlled. "That my wife was worth basic respect?" Ethan's face turned crimson. "Sir, I'm so sorry, David held up a hand. "Save it. We'll talk later. For now, make sure every guest here is treated the way they deserve to be." He turned back to Camille, his expression softening. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that, darling." Camille reached for his hand. "It's all right," she said softly. "It's better this way. Now you know who you can trust." David exhaled, nodding. As they ate, Ethan lingered nearby, shame burning in his chest. For the first time, he saw her not as a customer or a stereotype, but as a woman, elegant, composed, and clearly loved. Guilt settled heavy on him. Every time she smiled or thanked Maria politely, he felt smaller. By the time dinner ended, the tension had faded from the room, though whispers still drifted between tables. David paid the bill, though Camille laughed at that part, teasing him that technically they were paying themselves, and they stood to leave. Before walking out, Camille turned to Ethan. "Everyone deserves kindness," she said quietly. "You might find your job feels different when you start giving it." Then she left, leaving him standing there with those words echoing in his mind. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Her calm voice haunted him more than if she'd yelled. He thought about every time he'd assumed something about a guest based on looks or accent. He'd always told himself it wasn't racism, just professional instinct. But deep down, he knew that was a lie. He replayed the evening in his mind, the humiliation, the realization, the guilt, and felt something shift inside him.